Hey guys, I wanted to talk to you about the transition of being a blogger into being a newsletter creator. And so I'm really sensitive to this. So I'm sensitive to the plight of new writers, whether you're in fiction or business or any other category, really. It was always traditionally really hard to make money online as a writer. So I have about a decade of experience in this, even blogging on really weird platforms. For example, LinkedIn newsletters when they acquired Pulse, which was in 2013, and I wrote on Medium and in their Medium partnership program for a while. And Medium was really idealistic in their ideology, right? About the spirit of writing on the internet and what it should be like. And yet on Medium and LinkedIn, you didn't own your own list. You didn't really own your own business. You were just a cog in their algorithmic wheel, right? LinkedIn is just an ads network. It's just a jobs and ads and hype network now for Microsoft. And I'm not saying I didn't love these platforms back in the day when they worked, when there wasn't, Substack and Beehive and these other platforms that are more progressive. So the creator economy and the ownership economy, it's really evolved, and not all brands have kept up with the times. So while I no longer write on some of these platforms, I want to talk a little bit about my relationship with Substack. Okay, so I was Substack's biggest critic probably in my first few months, because you know how it is in your first 6 months, right? You're not seeing growth, and you're listening to these people who have more growth than you, who have been doing it for maybe years. And so it's like, will I ever reach that point? So I was super skeptical. I was like, what's with these Ponzi schemes and this pyramid that only benefits the people at the top? It was April 2022, and they had just started their recommendation feature, right? So the newsletters who were 2, 3, 4 years old reaped the rewards of this benefit. They went from 50,000 free readers to like 300,000 free readers in basically no time at all. And I was like, wow, that's interesting. Does this ever spill down to the other hundreds of creators, these other new newsletters, who, if they don't see signs of progress in their first 2, 6, 10 months, they might not continue? I was that guy. I had been writing a lot. For about 9 months, my growth had plateaued. It was about October. And then November, which isn't that long ago, actually, right? It's just a few months ago. November, I had a really good month. I said, maybe I will continue this. Maybe it deserves some more attention. And when I started to understand the dynamics of what compounds your newsletter growth, right? So it is the thought leadership and the quality of your writing and the community that you're building. And Substack is really good at those things. But it's also just that feeling that there's enough newsletters who are recommending you. You have enough writer referrals that it's scaling, that it's giving meaning to these new newsletters. And you're starting to want to mentor them because you remember how bad it was your first month, your first 3 months, your first 6 months. It's such a grind at the beginning. And you just kind of have to keep doing it. And the whole recommendation engine, it starts to trickle down, but it takes like at least a year to a year and a half, I think, where even compounding becomes possible, right? So I was seeing those dashboards of people, their screenshots on Twitter, and it was like hockey stick, right? Like you could see it like April 2022, and their growth was just like that. And I was like, wow, that hockey stick, I wonder if I will ever experience that. And I was very critical, and like the Substack employees, like they just wouldn't answer me, and I was getting all these weird vibes. And I'm a critical person by nature, right? I'm like really, I'm a skeptic, and I'm a little bit analytical, and I'm like, if it's only working for your top 1%, is that ever going to trickle down for everyone else, right? That was my feeling. And then after a few more months of growth, I'm starting to understand, the flow and how the flow is accelerating and how their product approach, they're putting this recommendation flow into more parts of the reader journey. So it's only going to get better. And then I went to their seminars, which is called Substack Grow, which is really kind of what inspired the name of this YouTube, which is called Substack Growth. And I was one of those people who was full of these writer workshop types, right? All kinds of creators from Substack, but a lot of like real writers, they're fiction writers or they're published authors or they're influencers and their categories. And I was like this business guy. I was looking kind of like, wow, they do a lot of these videos of success stories, former Substack Grow members coming back and sharing their success stories. And I was just like sitting there like, this seems very like promotional. Oh, you have these brand ambassadors who come back and share the glory. And there's a little bit of a disconnect, right? From the new reader to someone who's a little bit more established, or someone who's making, thousands of dollars when you aren't even really making hundreds of dollars yet, right? It's a bit like, it reminded me of the Medium Partner Program where you were writing for like literally pennies, right? Pennies to the page. It felt like a content mill on Medium during those periods, right? And that's when I really felt, oh my God, this is just like a toxic echo chamber of writers clamoring for attention. It was just like too much. And Substack, what initially felt like a pyramid scheme, and I'll be honest, I was the first to call them out. I was like, whoa, why is it only benefiting these people that have been here 3-4 years and it makes sense, right? So all these new newsletters, what they do and what they think is actually going to work is they recommend the top people in their category. And that's absolutely the worst way to do it. You should be recommending your peers who started off at the same time as you in the same niche, because you want the targeted traffic and you want to grow with people who are growing. You don't want to see them as competitors, you want to see them as collaborators. And so these big people, they'll never recommend you back. You're just giving them free readers and they don't care about you. I tweeted those people, and not everyone is like Lenny. They're not all going to be answering you, right? So you want to be recommending peers that are actually in your same cohort, who've at least started at the same starting line, right? Because they're going to grow tremendously if their content is good, and if your content is good, you're going to be growing tremendously. So you want to pair up with the people like you. So the whole recommendation and peer economy, it works when people understand that it's not supposed to be a pyramid scheme. You're not supposed to be recommending just the best people. You're supposed to be recommending the growing people like you. So once all this dawned on me, because I want to be completely honest, I was one of the major critics of this new recommendation engine. And I still meet people who are pro or con the recommendation engine. It's targeted traffic if you're getting recommendations from people in your niche, but that's very hard. A lot of people see you more as their competitor. They don't want to be recommending you if you're, writing about the same thing, right? So people are skeptical in many different ways. And the other thing is, yes, it's traffic, but it's not necessarily people that are going to be more likely to subscribe to you, right? So you bring in all this extra traffic and your open rate goes lower, and your conversion rate for those people are going to be lower than your baseline, because your baseline is already somewhat targeted traffic, right? If you're doing things properly, you're already attracting people who are interested in your niche. And some of the referral traffic from the recommendations is not going to be as targeted. So it's only normal that those people might be overwhelmed with many newsletters, may not even be opening yours. That's perfectly okay. I'm of the belief that more readers is ultimately good for the creator and usually does translate into more paid subscriptions. So you have to understand the peer economy with a grain of salt and understand how it works and how it is a pyramid scheme that needs to trickle down. And the writer referrals is something now of a little bit of a secret. I think they've taken it off the profile page last time I checked. Anyways, that's gonna give a trickle up. That's a grassroots approach. So all these different product features, including something new called Substack Boost. And Substack Boost also helps reduce the churn from your newsletter. So they're experimenting back end. They have, two growth teams. They're working on the reader experience. They're working on the writer experience. There's this evolving ecosystem of creators who are maturing, and their newsletters are getting more sophisticated, and there's more newsletters per category than ever before. So each category is maturing at its own rate in its own way. Some are really US audience based, like the political writers, the most viral writers. I would estimate Substack probably makes 90 to 95% of its revenue just from its political writers. So how it's tethered to Twitter is really strong. So if you're a newsletter creator and you're not grinding and experimenting and enjoying Twitter, you are potentially missing out on another way to compound your growth, right? I'm a business writer, so I'm also on LinkedIn. So there's all these factors that interplay with the way we relate to the platform, right? Whether you buy into the ideology or not, whether you think recommendations are wholesome, or you might even think it dilutes your list, right? There's people I've met who are like, I turned that off. I turned that thing off, bro. And then I'm asking them, okay, well, how's your growth during that period? And usually it's not great, right? So you kind of want to use the tools a platform is known for. And definitely when I think of Substack and Beehive, they're leaders in the newsletter economy because of all their product features that enable you to grow faster and to grow your audience in ways where you're leveraging your peers, you're collaborating with these other creators who are more evolved than you simply by the fact that they started their newsletter years before you, right? A lot of these people, I mean, I've been doing this for 10 years. My newsletter is only, 13, 14 months old, but there's people that are in my niche that have been doing this their whole life, right? They have many books and published works regarding the topic of their niche. Maybe they're influencers on YouTube and TikTok. There's so many possibilities, right? Maybe they're famous political analysts or stock analysts or what have you. And there's the journey of how you relate to the platform, right? There's that skepticism and denial, and these are normal stages of how you emotionalize your journey as a writer, right? It's so hard in the first 6 months or the first year. That's why there's fewer newsletter creators than you think, because a lot of them churn, a lot of them quit, a lot of them don't see the results to even keep on going, when keeping on going is the most important thing. So I'm really trying to develop community. I've started these Twitter circles, and I see these people leaving the circle. I'm like, wow, I wonder if they realize how important networking is and how important that's part of the process of building recommendation, referrals, writer referrals. Writer referrals, what I'm doing is every time I do a LinkedIn newsletter, I'm sharing the link to my writer referral. Oh, this is a great time to start a emerging tech or AI newsletter. And it really is, that's the fact. There's ChatGPT and all these generative AI tools. And so with each writer referral that I get, I'm potentially getting more recommendations that will scale. So my initial skepticism of the product and of the experience, I've sort of been converted by the ecosystem. And I think it's when I realized how social you have to be. Like, I'm an introvert. I'm really shy. I'm really I'd be happy just to not talk to anyone online or otherwise. I mean, I have my basic intimate family circle, an extended family, and a few friends, and not many. And so what makes me realize that I have to be social is my survival in the creator economy, right? if the product incentivizes social behavior, going on each other's podcasts, creating webinars together, there's so many possibilities for incredible collaboration. You know, maybe a fiction guild, and there's local journalism efforts that are collaborative. And then there's these media startups, these solo entrepreneurs that they become so successful on Substack, they start hiring people. They hire a research assistant, they hire a marketing and growth person, they hire the freelance designers and illustrators. I was recently talking to an illustrator in Scotland, and it's because I found him on the Intrinsic Perspectives newsletter. I was like, whoa, this guy's artwork is exactly the sort of stuff that I want. So I reached out to him. We had a Zoom call, and I said, listen, bro, if I become just a little bit more successful, I'll be able to afford to commission an illustration from you, and let's grow together. And he's like, wow, okay. I've been doing this for 2-3 years. I was, a PhD engineer, and I decided to follow my passion into art. I'm like, yeah, that's how I feel. Being a writer is a huge sacrifice in terms of, finances and stability. And so these collaborations, they wouldn't be possible if you wouldn't be trying to be social, reach out to people, try to do guest posts, offer other people to do guest posts, cross promote. There's all these things, and I'm aware of all this stuff in the background at Substack, right? I'm aware, they acquired so-and-so who was building the growth tool Yem, and then now that Substack Boost, and I'm tracking everything because, it matters to me. It's part of my journey as a writer here. And so my initial skepticism was kind of normal, considering the experiences I had on Medium, considering that I have all these followers on LinkedIn I can't even migrate, right? They don't even belong to me. All those thousands of hours of effort, at least an author, they have a book, they have a following from that book. Maybe, they're a real published author, or maybe they were a real journalist. They are a real journalist. And there's Substack creators that have side gigs, right? There was the person who writes Garbage Day. He's also freelancing for Fast Company, right? So we're all just kind of making ends meet in whatever way we can. There's some Substack creators that are getting really good at creating sponsored ads. So they have relationships with these companies. They can say, hey, look, my subscribers, this is their demographics. This is how I surveyed them. This is who you're reaching. And yeah, they can charge $200-300 per issue, right? So they're potentially making a lot more revenue through their ads and through their other activities, right? So there's this fellow, he creates a webinar, right? So he creates the live version of the webinar with maybe just a few people, and then he sends it to the rest of his paid audience. And it does wonders for how people can convert, right? So people who are building communities with webinars and so forth, their conversion rate is so much higher that they're able to create a real media business relatively easier than someone like me that's just blogging, right? I'm not link stuffing or putting as many links and news as some people are. I'm really the old style blogger that's still kind of doing that, right? Because that's what I enjoy doing. But the whole part of the journey as writers and readers is we're learning together, right? So when I used to see those hockey sticks of those 1 or 2 people, and it's all fair and well, I'm glad if they're making millions of dollars. I just wanted to see more proof that it trickles down to other people. And so that was April 2022. And now let's say we're getting to that 1 year mark. So how is that doing, right? How are those peer discovery systems trickling down to everyone else? So that's really what I'm keeping an eye on. And I still see the political writers are growing a lot faster than the culture writers and the fiction writers. And keep in mind, those culture writers, they're only charging a sub of maybe $5 or $6 a paid sub, right? So if they're going slower and charging less, it's really a different world for them. And so I'm really aware of all these irregularities, right? If you're in an investing newsletter, you could be charging $30 or $50 if you're really good, and people will pay that price just because, for stocks or crypto, that's nothing. That money is easily regained from the knowledge that you're getting. So there's that value exchange, right? There's that guy that writes for engineers and engineering managers, right? And so your value proposition from a business standpoint is really interesting to watch. And I guess the main point, I'm just trying to be real here. I guess the main point for me is that, yeah, the beginning is super hard, and props to you if you can survive that, and if you can overcome. The struggle is real for any new creator, any new writer online, especially in the first period, especially if you don't have any other home base, any other fame or influence or social media following or anything like that to back you up. The only thing that's going to back you up in that case are the recommendations from people who are more established. And the whole compounding of the newsletter, it's not a mysterious secret. It's really just a numbers game. And let's get real. It matters how many people are recommending you and the quality of those sources, the quality of their recommendations, hopefully targeted to your niche. And it's really that simple. It's really about being social and not just doing what you love, but also pushing your limits, grinding in new ways. I don't want to be on Twitter, but I've realized with Substack, it's a necessity. It's a necessity because that's part of the compounding factor that can make your growth actually worthwhile, that can translate perhaps into a side income. So these are just my experiences. This is just my opinion. I've been writing on LinkedIn and Medium for 10 years, as well as blogging on WordPress and in other places. I've tried every single blogging platform that you can think of. I've tried Quora, I've tried leveraging Reddit, I've tried, I don't know. I mean, it's just video that I haven't tried, right? I haven't been on TikTok much, or I've never had a YouTube. Here I am on my old laptop without a proper mic or proper lighting or proper anything, using a computer, a PC here that's like 10 years old or something, right? I'm just trying to keep on writing. But yeah, I mean, you see people grow from, 6 months being on Substack to like 2 years, and it's like a different person. And I think that's the thing you have to remember. If you're a new creator, don't be too skeptical if you can understand the different points of the journey, right? So there's different touch points, and there's different things you want to be building, certain foundations, and the networking and the social proof and the compounding of the recommendations, having 10 people recommending you versus 50 people recommending you, that's a difference in how many free readers you're getting every day. And if you're converting 5 or 2 or 10% of those into paid subs, you're probably going to make some money just with paid subs. And that's not even considering sponsored ads, webinars, courses, one-on-one consults, Substack meetings. So think about it. Think about the long game. Think about what it means to you. And think about going and doing things that you might not be in love with, like marketing and networking. And maybe that's work, right? Maybe that's work for you. Maybe that's painful. Maybe grinding on Twitter or LinkedIn or Reddit or TikTok is not your idea of fun, right? Maybe I'm an introvert. I don't want to be too social. I don't want to be trying to make Twitter circles and seeing everyone leaving, or trying to make YouTubes. And I obviously can't make YouTubes. I'm just like this old blogger, right? But yeah, my skepticism was intense. I probably made some of those Substack employees nervous, right? Because I could be a little bit impulsive, and I was calling them out for that pyramid Ponzi scheme sort of thing, right? But as long as it trickles down to those guys, and I'm going to do everything I can to give those new readers some hope, because I remember how hopeless I was. I didn't have any other income. And you hear this story a lot, even from relatively successful Substackers, right? They're not covering their fees. Their kids are in private school. They're living off savings, bro. They're living off their savings. They're bootstrapping. They're like, I create free content. I just I just ask my readers for support. And then something clicks and they're like, that's not gonna work. That's not gonna cut it. So you learn over time as a writer what's acceptable. You know, we feel so embarrassed to ask for money. We feel almost pained to create a break in the article. Oh, you can only read this if you're paid down here. I don't feel guilty for that anymore, right? You have a value proposition. If the people value what you're doing, if they realize how poor you are, how much struggle you have on the material plane of basic needs, maybe they would pay for you if they like your content, right? Maybe it's okay to ask for what you might be worth, right? As writers, we're so like self-effacing and like we're used to the martyrdom of writing online for like nothing, right? Like we're just doing what we want to do. And it's a struggle. And we are skeptical. And we don't like it if it feels like a Ponzi scheme. But if we keep doing it and the second or the third or the fourth year, we start to see tremendous growth, I wonder how we would see those first 6 months or that first year and a half where it's so hard. And so I just wanted to share that experience. It's not something I've had on LinkedIn or Medium, right? And I had my share of success on those platforms. Don't get me wrong, I worked my butt off everywhere I've been. I've I've hustled and I haven't even compounded my personal brand in a very effective way. I mean, I'm basically a business failure, but I kept on writing because that's what I wanted to do. I took on gigs as a freelancer, as a content marketer that I never would have usually taken. I was writing for blockchain startups that would get into like legal trouble, that would like, it was a nightmare. I've been, I've been broke. I've had really good years. I've, it's such a journey. And if you do Substack or Beehive well, it's like an oasis, right? It's an oasis of opportunities because it leads to other things and it builds. And it's actually the people that you meet that enable you to learn and transfer skills that you might not ordinarily have thought that you had. Maybe Simon Owens didn't see himself leading a media webinar, but there you go. If he could figure it out, maybe we could figure it out. And people are figuring out sponsored ads, even though Substack would prefer that we don't do ads. But listen, if we're not making enough with paid subs, what other choice do we have? Right? So some people go to Beehive where there is an ad platform. I don't know how well that's doing. I don't know why no Beehive newsletters have paid subscriptions. I can't figure it out. What are they all doing affiliate marketing? I have no idea. Anyways, I started with Substack because it was easy to use and it was free. And the recommendation feature is relatively new. It's not even a year old. So if I'm starting to compound, and I'm not even a big person, right? I just crossed the 10,000 free reader mark. My open rate's not even that good. I'm not even in a good category. I'm not writing about politics or investing, which to me is like the real two that really do well, right? Financially speaking. I'm not triggering people's emotions or trying to write stuff that they're going to comment on, right? I'm just in my own little corner of the internet, enjoying the journey, not seeking to be a big influencer or compound my personal brand or become like a big player in any shape or form, right? I'm kind of too old for that stuff. I'm happy to just do my little thing. But the point being is my skepticism slowly melted, right? And it melted because I realized that anyone could actually compound their newsletter. You don't even have to write incredible quality content. You don't have to be the best in your field to make it here. And there's room for a lot more growth just because Substack's a young startup. It doesn't have the core audience that could make everyone blow up, right? So it needs these people, it needs these brand ambassadors, it needs to have these success stories. And relatively few will actually have faith in the platform and keep on and keep compounding, right? Because that threshold of having a plateau or even having a declining readership, imagine that your churn is higher than your growth. A lot of people are going to quit. A lot of people aren't going to go through those difficult periods. It's just not financially worth it to them, or they have other stuff going on, or life happens. There's all kinds of reasons. So it's normal to be disgruntled and in denial and skeptical. Oh my God, I only grew 50 free subscribers this month. Oh my God, this is not working. I see all these stories of people, people online, they're always bragging, right? They're always bragging. Oh, look, I hit 20,000 free subscribers in just 2 weeks, right? And so ignore that stuff. Just focus on your own journey. It's going to be different for all of us. But listen, if you're social and you network and you get enough people subscribing you and you give enough value to a potential audience, there's no reason why you can't make it too. If you've chosen a name of a newsletter that is attractive, not just Michael's newsletter, okay? Not some variation of your name. We can't all be Lenny, okay? I don't know why Substack defaults to our name. I guess it's for SEO reasons. It doesn't make sense to me. People have to choose names that are appealing, right? I'm trying to recommend people, and the people that don't have good newsletter names, less people are subscribing to those, are following those newsletters. So even just the name of your newsletter actually does matter. Are you writing about AI? Then maybe AI should be in the title. That's my way of thinking about it. I'm sure there's plenty of people that have variations of their name that are doing perfectly well. But I guess I just wanted to share my intense skepticism, my intense criticism, and how in greater clarity and understanding and having little glimmers of success myself, I've been turned into a brand ambassador by default of my own journey, right? So if I'm like really into these new writers, it's because like I suffered so much being a new writer, even being undiscovered in a category that I thought Substack was neglecting. There's just technology. So I'm just buried there among all these technology writers who could be writing about anything. They could be writing about startups, about entrepreneurship. Back end, there is a machine learning category, but that's not public, right? So I'm like, top 80 in this list of like supposedly thousands of people, not really climbing up that ladder of discovery, right? In this mega category, this meta category that just fits all sorts of people in there. So I was like, how am I going to grow? How am I going to have visibility? And then I realized, with the recommendation engine, you don't need to be on those top lists. You don't need to be the type of newsletter that new people are necessarily going to recommend if you're actually networking with the people at your same level. So that's why I call it the peer recommendation economy, because it's really about building actual ties with your peers. And it's not just about, asking people, oh, recommend me, right? You actually want to get to know them, get to know what they're doing, the tactics that they use. It's not just about exploiting this mechanism of the platform, right? I feel it's more about the mentorship and the buddy system. So I have people that are far more involved than me who are really mentoring me, right? And then I have people who are just starting out and who might even think I'm, annoying, right? Maybe they don't need my advice. Maybe they find me overbearing. I'm not quite sure, but I didn't have anyone like that when I started, right? I didn't have people concerned about my growth or who apparently were asking me, how I'm doing. So I would have appreciated to have that. I would have appreciated to have some community, and everyone has their own approach, right? I'm not the one that will enjoy being on a huge Substack Discord necessarily, especially if it's, if it's another group, another category that seems to dominate it. Business writers, they're a dime a dozen, right? I'm just another business blogger. how do I find people like me? So even in a platform, you have to find your own ways to find people like you, right? The Twitter circles, I'm in a few of them, and it's usually by topic, right? So there's a Twitter circle for political writers. There's a Twitter circle more for finance and influencers and so forth. So you find community where you can and you network how you can. Some people I just email them because I can't find them. They're literally not on social media, right? So some writers are really they just want to leave Twitter and leave LinkedIn and leave all these past things, and they're not going to touch TikTok or YouTube. And then there's these younger writers who are aware that they are creators, right? They're they're hitting TikTok and YouTube hard, and Substack is just a part of their strategy. And those are the people that are obviously going to do better because they're covering all of their bases. They have massive followings on all these places because this is their job. They take it seriously. They do it diligently. They're not just writers, they're creators, and they understand how the ownership economy works, right? I'm a bit of an old school blogger, so it took me a while to understand that this was not just some pyramid scheme, that this was actually a different way of a platform could operate, right? So all that Medium ideology and all the betrayals I experienced on Medium as a platform, they fired their whole staff several times, and they never gave writers control of their ecosystem, never had control over your list, over your following. Um, they trapped you in this paywall that really wasn't paying you adequately, right? So it was like pennies. And I just saw so many writers suffering and networking with each other, but without a real audience. There weren't enough readers. The ratio of the creators to the readers just was skewed in such a weird way. It didn't make sense. And the whole thing kind of fell apart, right? So there was a good time of the Medium partnership program, just as there's a good time with the creator funds, right? It's not very big, but if you had the right timing, you could make a little bit of money if you were in the right. Now it's YouTube Shorts, now it's Substack or Beehive. You know, tomorrow, next year it could be something else. The point being is you have to understand that there's a compromise between the mechanics and the ideology, and it's okay to be skeptical, but at the end of the day, you use what you can, right? And so for me as a creator, it was a big shift in mentality for me to think, okay, I have to take this networking seriously. I have to value other people in my niche. I have to give them respect and interest and attention and work with them instead of seeing them as competitors. And it's not about finding random Substack community on a Discord or a Facebook group, right? That's not going to give you anything. You really have to talk to people in your niche because you need the traffic that's going to be valuable. It needs to be targeted to your niche. So there's no point for me to go on those Discords or to talk randomly in a Facebook group of writers or creators, right? It's more the one-on-one. So DMing people on LinkedIn, DMing them on Twitter, emailing them, reaching out a one-on-one is to me what builds a rapport where the recommendation actually means something. It's not just like we're using each other. It's like we're actually building at the same time and sharing tips, and people all have back and forth with, right? Even though I'm introverted and shy and don't generally like interacting on social media that much, if we're in the same journey, it's actually more valuable. So that's how my skepticism of Substack turned, and I became my own version of a brand ambassador just because I'm enjoying the process and I'm enjoying trying to see how I can help these new newsletters and these new creators. So yeah, a little bit of a rant here, but that's sort of what I'm thinking right now.